Great day. It is such a pleasure to be here with you on behalf of Bad Cave. I am Shayla Paul. And of course, this is Dare to Deal with True DDT. We are doing a very special hot topic this evening, and I have a very special guest with me this evening, Mr. Christopher Green. We are addressing the simple topic of Am I depressed? Now, when we ask that question, the first thing we want to highlight is very simply, how do I even know that I suffer from depression? There are some obvious signs that many people in the community have already shown, but there are some not so obvious signs that have been literally swept under the rug and ignored. But today we will hear from a king himself. We will hear from someone who will share with you his story and literally the secrets to not only identifying those signs, but also getting the help needed to address this diagnosis. The beautiful thing about this diagnosis is this, and I'm so glad that Chris is here to help us with this topic. You can go to the doctor and you can get a common cold, and you would immediately go to the store and get Tylenol.
Mhm.
You can have a headache and you would immediately go and get Advil or a goody powder, whatever it is that's going to help you with your pain. But when it is something of the mind, it is something that so many people think there is not a cure, there is not a medicine, there is not something to help this. But you are in luck because this week, Monday, was World Mental Health Day. And this is the awareness to so many people that if you are showing any of the not so obvious signs, we want you to realize, like, just like you go to the store for medicine, we want you to go get help for this condition. Please know that help is available, and we have someone here that's going to show you just how much it can impact your life. So, without further ado, Mr. Christopher Green, we're going to go ahead and give you the floor. I just want you to share with our viewers your story. What were those signs? When did you have that moment where you felt like something is just not right?
Mhm. Well, first of all, thank you so much for bringing me on your show today. But I would say this that I think I've been dealing with depression for about 5 years or so. I, I didn't realize I was depressed until when I went to the doctor for my yearly checkup. And each time I go to the doctor will ask me questions about like, how things are going, what's happening, whatever. And it seemed like every time we talk, I would get my diagnosis and it says mild depression or major depression. And I'm like, wow, what's happening? And then um, throughout the years, I felt myself falling into depression where I felt isolated or distant mentally and physically, emotionally. I felt where I wanted to just cry a lot, you know. And I think back in 2017, back in 2017, where I was working a job and the job was just so taxing emotionally on me. And I, I just couldn't do it. So I went to a counselor and as we were talking, he realized that I was just depressed because of work. And I was like, man, I didn't notice I was that depressed until I finally had a chance to talk it out.
Mhm.
See, a lot of times we don't know that we're dealing with depression because depression is a silent thing.
Mhm.
It's not where people can actually see it or
Yeah.
where you can feel it, but it's something that tends to come out within conversation, or sometimes it could come out in your face.
Mhm.
And so for me, my depression came out in my emotions,
Mhm.
where I just want to just cry and feel just all kind of ways.
Okay.
And so when I went to the doctor, they diagnosed me with first of all, mild depression.
Mhm.
And he was like, all right, just take it easy, exercise, get plenty of rest and what have you. So I'm like, all right, cool, I understand. And so when I left the job in 2017, I was feeling okay because I was able to transition to something different.
Mhm.
And, transitioning to a different job was pretty cool. I was okay with that. But it seemed like every time I would go back to the doctor, I would get diagnosed with depression again.
Wow.
I don't understand. I'm like,
Mhm.
why am I depressed?
Mhm.
And there was just some things that I just didn't understand why I was dealing with depression. And it was just that I was just trying to figure out, I guess, sometimes we don't know ourselves and we
Yeah.
too busy trying to find who we really are.
Mhm.
And sometimes us being trying to figure out who we are can kind of cause us to fall into something that we don't understand ourselves, like who we are and what's going on with our lives.
Exactly.
Um, I think I was just trying to search me, search Chris.
Mhm.
And I really didn't search Chris, honestly, because I was still feeling down and out and hurt and everything. And
Mhm.
so when I left that job, I went to another job in Orangeburg where it was okay. And I
Mhm.
was adjusting to the job and I liked it. And I felt myself coming out of that depression. But
Mhm.
then when I switched to a different job with more work,
Mhm.
again, I felt myself falling again,
Wow.
and let me tell you, depression is heavy. It's
Yeah.
like a heavy weight that you're carrying on
Mhm.
you every day. It's not like, again, a feeling, but it's something that you carries, and you can carry it because sometimes depression can be a weight that
Yeah.
is heavy to carry, and all you do is want to slump and
Mhm.
sleep or be just lackadaisical.
Wow.
Um, and so um, when my dad passed away last year, it really showed,
Yeah.
my depression really showed who I really am. All I could do is cry. And I went to my wife and I cried and I
Yeah.
cried. And again, I don't think she understood the sign. I don't
Mhm.
think she know what to look for, what to expect. But I
Mhm.
remember she was like, you need to get yourself together. Like, I don't know what's going on, but you need to get together.
Uh-huh.
And when she
Uh-huh.
said that, I looked at her, I was like, I'm trying. I don't know what's going on. You know.
Mhm.
So and so I went to again to the doctor, and my doctor diagnosed me with major depression at that
Mhm.
moment. And they gave me some meds to take. I took it
Mhm.
one time, and I just didn't like how I feel. I think I had like an emotional breakdown again in my office at work.
Mhm.
I was like, God, what is going
Wow.
on with me? Like, I don't understand why. Sometimes we can go to church day in, day out. We can pray,
Mhm.
we can shout, we can dance, all
Yes.
these different stuff that we can do. We can do all the stuff that we think our everyday lives is calling
Mhm.
for. But in reality, it was just something that we're dealing with internally or emotionally
Yes.
that we don't like
Mhm.
to deal with. And I realized, like, in church people don't like to deal with reality. Like,
Wow.
we don't like to deal with what's really is happening within us. We
Yeah.
Because we want to speak in tongue over
Mhm.
all of our hurt and all of our flaws. And then
Yeah.
when we leave church and after we finish shouting and running around and speaking in tongue and falling out, we go back home and we deal with those same issues again,
Yeah.
day
Mhm.
in and day out, day in and day out. And I realized something. We have to learn to be honest with ourselves. Like,
Yes.
be able to commit who you are and what you're
Yes.
dealing with. If you know that you're depressed, call it out.
Yes.
And I call it out to myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm depressed. And I ask God, I said, Lord, I need you to take this depression spirit away from me.
My God.
And so I realized that I started writing things down. I started writing notes. And I was
Mhm.
like, all right, I got to get it out. And people started realizing, they were like, you okay? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. You know how we get this look.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then I didn't realize how I felt or how I was looking because I didn't pay attention to it.
Mhm.
Again, some depression can be silent and we don't know that we're depressed.
Yeah.
But sometimes depression could take our mind to a different direction or to a different dimension in our lives until
Mhm.
it can put us into a state of shock
Mm.
or anything else.
See.
Um, I was not suicidal. That's one good
Mhm.
thing about it. But I
Yes.
was, but I was hurt. But I was lost. I didn't know where to go.
Mhm.
And so I went to another job. I took another job,
Uh-huh.
and the job I took put me into severe depression.
Wow.
Um, and I don't know why it was just like, God, what is up with these jobs? Like, I choose the wrong jobs.
Yes.
And so I chose a job. It put me to a depression. And this year alone, I went to a psychiatrist, and she looked at
Wow.
me and she said, "You're depressed."
Yeah.
So she gave me meds for
Mm-hmm.
depression. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what happened?
What
What
happened?
I did, I took those meds and I prayed over it. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, now, Lord, I don't know what's going on, but I
Yeah,
need you to take this away from me.
that's
And
right.
so I put those medicine away. And daily, I started writing affirmations to me.
Yes.
I started
That's
telling
it.
myself who I am and
That's
how
it.
great I am and how
Mm.
wonderful I am each day. And
So
every
deep.
day I started doing it, it's like I started building myself up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw Transformers and how they
Mhm.
was like laying out on the ground, but when they got up, they're like, and started building up as this big thing.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And that's pretty much how it was. Like it was just something
Uh-huh.
small, but then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, I built myself up to something bigger and to something greater. And then
That
I
is
saw
big.
the residual from the depression started falling off. And now
Yeah.
I started feeling like I can live and survive now because all of
Oh,
the
yeah.
weight that I had on my shoulder was coming off.
That,
And so
that
one of the things I realize now is that when you call those things out in
call them
you,
out.
and when you start manifesting and when you start writing down affirmations, when you start praying, then you'll be able to understand where you are. And see, I
Yeah.
realized one thing about us. We
Mm-hmm.
don't like to tell us who we are. We don't like to tell us what's going on with us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't like to admit, or as
Mm-hmm.
we would say, be real with each other.
Yes.
But the main thing is be real with number one, with yourself. And
That's
when
right.
you're being real with you, then you can be able to deal with you.
Yes.
And that's what happened. I had to do. I had to be real with me, and I had to deal with me.
Yes.
And so, um, and this is where I am.
Powerful. That is powerful. Now, I want to recap because if anyone just jumped on the video, I want to recap on some of the things that I heard you say.
Mhm,
One of the things that I got from what you said was number one, the transition from job to job to job to job. The other thing that I heard was when you started doing the affirmations,
mhm,
there was something that was changing inside of you. And so there's one word that comes to mind when I think about your particular story:
mhm,
identity.
mhm,
How do you identify yourself? How do you see yourself? Now, the only thing I can feel in this moment from one job to the next job was only meaning one thing for you. You ain't supposed to be on nobody's job. You supposed to be your own boss.
Exactly, and that's how I
That-
feel too.
That's it.
Yep.
And every single time you transition, you were going backwards, not
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
Because
Yep.
God was setting you up to say, look here, I don't want you on nobody's job.
Right. Exactly.
There is
Exactly.
entrepreneurship in you.
Hmm.
And I've given you the tools, I've given you a testimony, I've given you the skills to be your own boss. But every single time you got on another job, you tried to identify yourself as an employee when I made you
Right.
an employer.
Right. Hmm.
So immediately, like you said about the transformer, not only was you transforming from depressed to affirming who you were finally realizing that every single time I went to another job, I was taken away from who God was making me to be.
Hmm.
I'm not supposed to be an employee of a company. I'm
Hmm.
supposed to be running a company. I'm
Yep.
supposed to be my own boss. And
Hmm.
as my own boss, those same affirmations that you spoke on yourself to become the transformer that you see was the same thing God had been trying to tell you
Hmm.
for the last 5 years. And
Hmm.
so your entire testimony is all about finding who you are.
Yep.
The
Yep.
second that you step out on faith, the second
Hmm.
that God gives you that business, the second that God tells you, guess what? Now you hear me. You
Hmm.
hear me now, Chris.
Hmm.
You hear what I have for you. Now that you hear me, everything is going to fall off. The
Yep.
depression is going to fall off. And the reason it's going to fall off is because you ain't under nobody's wing but God.
But God,
You
and
ain't
that's it.
relying on nobody else but
Mm.
Him.
But that's it.
He designed for you, and that's what I heard. And I'm pretty sure the viewers can co sign on that.
Hmm.
He heard you struggling with who you are.
Hmm.
That's why every single time you was like, I don't know why. And
Right.
you're going to the doctor, but understand what the doctor does. And I always explain this to everyone, whether they're in the medical field, whether they know something about the medical field, but the doctors can only go by what you tell them. When
Mm-hmm.
you come into the doctor's office, whether you're going into a psychiatrist, whether you're going into a dentist, whatever doctor you're going into, they're going to ask you, what brings you here today?
Mm-hmm.
You have a
Yep.
choice to tell them, well, I've been having this, I've been feeling this, I've been
Mm-hmm.
feeling that. They take a diagnosis from your symptoms.
Right.
You tell me what you're experiencing, I'll tell you what we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We give you medicine. Let's see if it works. Let's see if
Mm-hmm.
it helps.
Mm-hmm.
If it helps, that confirms that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But you said to yourself, you took that medicine and you said, look here, I don't think I need you.
Yep.
I don't think this identifies who I am. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need medicine to tell me who I am. My
Mm-hmm.
affirmations tell me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So, for our viewers, the beautiful thing about your testimony is that first and foremost, be true to yourself. Who are you?
Right.
If I am suffering from depression, does it have something to do with how I see myself?
Mm-hmm.
How I see myself? Because a lot of times things have been spoken over people,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been spoken, you're never going to amount to anything. You're not a good father. You're not a
Mm-hmm.
good husband. You're not a good son. You're not a good brother. Or your work ethics is not the best.
Mm-hmm.
Those things resonate in people's spirit. And
Right.
after a while, I identify as a not so good husband, a
Mm-hmm.
not so good brother.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm more focusing on what people have identified me as than what I've identified
Right.
myself.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so people have to be very conscious of who they have around them,
Mm-hmm.
because the people that see your gift, the people that see your potential are going to speak the same language as those affirmations.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so they should be speaking things to you that will, here again, let those things fall off.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you so much for your story, because your story gave us another snippet of, I never thought about that's what it was.
Right.
How do I see myself? Do I
Mm-hmm.
identify myself according to what my mom said about me,
Mm-hmm.
what my dad said about me? And I've even been very conscious as a parent myself to be careful what I speak over my child.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
sometimes something as simple as you just like your daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mama, the last conversation that you had about my daddy wasn't that positive. So even if you say the simple statement, you're just like my dad,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still taking that in as my identity.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have to be mindful of what has been spoken over us. So I thank you so much for taking the time to show us identity.
Yes.
Just who are you? Accept who you are first and foremost. See the grand picture, but also dig deep and say, how do I identify myself? Do I look
Mm-hmm.
in the mirror and do I see a man of faith?
Yeah.
Do I see a man of integrity? Do I see a good father? Do I see a man that's trying? Because
Mm-hmm.
some people never even acknowledge when somebody is actually trying. He's making the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Give him credit for the effort.
Yep.
Because after I give credit for the effort, there's more that's going to come out of him. He's going to be
That's
like,
it.
really? You
Uh-huh.
walk in the house, your wife say, you washed the dishes? What? You took care of the kids? What? Thanks, babe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One simple statement just reconfirmed to him, I'm
Right.
doing my best.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
am doing my best.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Green, for your story. Your story, trust me, is very powerful. And I know our viewers thank you for literally pouring out your heart.
Mm-hmm.
We will
Thank
have
you.
a second part to this. We have another king that's going to share his story as well, and the not so obvious signs of depression. So we thank you for your attention. Please share this video, tag someone, or share this video. There are more than just men that are dealing with this, there are
Mm-hmm.
women that are dealing with this as well. So share this video so that they too can understand the not so obvious and obvious signs of depression, and seek help
Hmm.
and make sure you get the help that you need to help you with this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your time. You have a great day.